Hi, I'm Sarah Bentley Pearson, and I created Sarah's List in 2015 for all my clients. I have spent many years getting to know people like Young, who we interviewed tonight, and Stan Benecki, and all these interior designers, and I wanted to have a list for clients that would give them really a great overview of Atlanta and all of the talent. And I decided to do this podcast based on all the talent that I've been so lucky to discover here in Atlanta and in the southeast part of the United States. I have been in real estate since 2005, but it was really when I was about 10 that I started in the business with my mother. And she worked for Merrill Lynch and was a hard-charging lady, and she started buying up houses, and she would put my sister and I to work on the weekends, no joke, like painting walls and whatever, and we were highly resentful. But every time we would be driving, she would say, look at that house, look at the molding, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so, it was really, I decided to get my license because it was something that I just felt that I understood. So I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, and my parents, my dad was an antique dealer later in his life, and I grew up in a really beautiful 18th century house. And my parents divorced, and my mother married a diplomat, and we moved to Washington for about a year and then moved to East Berlin while the wall was still up. And my stepfather was the DCM, which stands for Deputy Chief of Mission of the American Embassy in East Berlin. And I lived in East Berlin and went to school in West Berlin, and then settled in Washington, D.C. area in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and lived there in New York, and I married a Southerner, and that's how I ended up here in Atlanta. Sarah Styles Your Life, the Southeast, was born out of feeling like what's next, and what do I have to contribute? And I'm at a stage in my life where I feel really lucky that I've attracted so many talented people into my life. And these are people that I should say that most of my friends and friendships are born out of admiration. And most of the people in my life are people that I've admired for, their great talent or their integrity or whatever it is. And so I want people to hear about all the great talent that I've gotten to know and understand how diverse the Southeast is. I think there's a lot of migration to the South from all parts of the country now, and I think it isn't old hat South. There is, in fact, I think the South in a lot of ways feels like a leader to me now, and I want to expose that. And the podcast is something that I'm doing out of just pure joy. It's something that I feel like I will really enjoy. It'll bring life to me and therefore life to the city. We met, and then we even partied in Miami a little bit, and we've had some fun, and I've gotten to know you over the years. But I didn't really know that much about your history until I went and read about you a little bit. And so you were born in Korea,
Seoul, yep.
Seoul, and then you went to Canada and then ended up in Miami. But I mean, this may sound ignorant, but based on your age, I'm assuming that Korea wasn't like it is today, South Korea.
Hell no.
So it probably, like me, living in East Berlin, was it kind of grim?
Oh, yeah. I mean, basically, it was 2 decades after the Korean War.
Right.
What was good looking, because we lived in an old part of Seoul that had the older structure, which is more like in China.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that was destroyed. So that was the beginning of the 70s architecture that was just ugly and bland, but they had to fit people and pack it in.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never had a real desire to go back, just because, I ran around in the streets, in a courtyard streets, like if, you're an old part of China, and that's just destroyed. And so if you're like, we lived right downtown. And so part of that is, you want to have your memories. And I think the memories when you're younger is really strong. And we had a courtyard house with a gate. So if there's ever something going on the street, you can just close the gate. And sold, it's kind of like an ugly, big, new, modern town.
Right.
Yeah.
And then to go to Canada, which, certain parts of Canada can be really beautiful. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out based on where you were born and then going to school in Miami and, being a kid from Korea and then coming to the United States, I mean, that's kind of a culture shock as it is. But what do you remember kind of when you really started to focus on those architectural details, when you started to pay attention and not just walk by a beautiful building?
Well, I think when you do travel, you're aware of your environment a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because number one, you have to orient yourself and you have to figure out landmarks and where you're at. And so, coming to Canada first, I didn't speak English. So you had to navigate. Mm. And luckily, Halifax had some pretty cool old buildings. It was like Brooklyn in a weird way. We lived in a brownstone.
Oh, wow.
And so, I think part of it, actually the traveling part, moving around every 4 years until we got to Miami, kind of helped you train your eye, just like I'm sure when you're in Berlin.
Right.
I mean, you happen to be in one of my favorite cities.
Yeah, and see, like, I have no interest in going back to Germany.
Why?
I don't know.
Why?
I mean, the Germans are just, not sexy people. They're really like,
I don't know, late at night.
I know. I mean, they like their
3, 4
porn and all that, but
know.
they're kind of risque. They're an interesting combination because they'll be the first to tell you if you're, not in line.
Yeah, they're
very
shy.
precise people.
They're not shy.
And I grew up in a fairly modern-looking house in East Berlin.
Like, so you were in East Berlin?
Yeah, I was in East Berlin. So I went to school in West Berlin and going back and forth. But it was so gray. That's why I was saying that I imagine Korea could be kind of gray.
Oh, totally.
And then we would go to West Berlin, and then it's like New York. Like the Kurfürstendamm was Madison Avenue. So. I think when you don't speak the language, maybe that's what we're getting to. You're just keenly aware of your environment.
Well, you have to think in your head and you have to use your eyes to navigate. Mm-hmm. And being in different environments, going from Korea, number one, to Toronto, to Halifax, to Miami, you see a lot of different environments. And I kind of like that.
And you must have been like, holy shit, Miami. Like so sunny and pretty. And
we left in a snowstorm right like January 2nd. And literally there's a snowstorm. We fly into Miami. It's 80 degrees, blue skies. We land. We're staying at the Everglades Hotel. I'm like, we got all this winter clothes. I'm like, what the hell? I don't need any of this. The Everglades Hotel, which is downtown, had coconut trees. Never saw a coconut tree. And you got to remember, when I landed in Miami in 72, the Dolphins were the perfect season. Muhammad Ali had his training camp there. You had South Beach wasn't it, just Miami Beach was it. Mm-hmm. So it was old school. And it was supercharged, You had a lot of fun things going on at nighttime, but I was a kid, and you kind of adapt, and it's just different environments that you get to adjust to. Plus, we lived in Coral Gables, which was a beautiful town. It's probably one of the best developed towns in the country. It was developed in the 1920s, and it just had great architecture. And I used to ride my bike around a lot. A bike was freedom for a kid.
Oh yeah, I rode my bike across the Berlin Wall.
That's it. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know that, and it's just like it's your wheels. Ironically, my mother was really good friends with a man named Mickey Wolfson, who owned the Wolfson Museum in Miami.
Oh yeah, totally.
And he had a big horn mustache, and he came to Berlin and stayed at our house, and he was very flamboyant, and he had his own train, and we met him in Salzburg, and my mom tried to ditch us in Salzburg to go on his plane and his train and party, and I threw a fit, like, this is not what a mother does. But anyway, I get it. She was trying to have fun.
But he put a museum in a fur vault on South Beach.
Yeah, I've been to it.
And that fur vault was like when New Yorkers went down to Miami, they had to bring their fur, which why they would need in Miami, I have no idea. And it's this kind of deco.
Yeah, it was a beautiful building.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I call Aztec deco, which is not like a pure modern deco building.
Is it still there?
It's still there.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's not going away.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what happened to Mickey.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think this is looping back to a quote that I love, that the eye doesn't see what the mind doesn't know. And we were talking about traveling earlier, but you come to Atlanta after college and you work for Norman Askins, who is a really elegant man.
Oh yeah.
And you get your reputation. But and you leave him and you go start your own firm. But what was your first big project here? Like, what was?
I had a lot. I had Tom Cousins' house that I did. I worked with a lot of big developers, and what's great with working with Norman was he gave me a lot to do. He gave me as much as I could handle. And the great thing about working under somebody like him is he was a great teacher, number one. And you got to pay your dues in the sense of knowing what's out there. So he was in historic preservation. And that got me started collecting books. And that started looking at, like, when I travel, what are the old homes? So, like, when you're in Atlanta, easy trip to Savannah, Charleston, all these great towns, New Orleans. And it's all here. You got in Sparta, Milledgeville, some of the greatest Greek revival buildings around here. And so the history's here. And then when I was at Norman's, he let me kind of design, and I learned that. But then I want to take it a little bit further. I wanted to do a little bit more European architecture. And I think you just sold the house that I did,
No, and it's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really like a forever house. I feel like I'm in something, and I mean, the floors are super beautiful, and just everything the materials are so fine, and rarely do you see that.
Well, I think craftsmanship and architecture go hand in hand, and especially in custom architecture. And one of the things that I used to, when I worked a lot with Jackie Lanham, interior designer, and she and Norman would create storylines for homes.
What do you mean?
You create a narrative.
Like, this is the kind of people that we are,
right,
living in this house.
And this is the location, this kind of architecture.
We travel to Italy in the summers.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And that narrative helps you create the house.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah. And so that narrative plays out. And in the house that you just saw, she happens to be a client that had a house in Provence, had antiques. She had a contractor that had great craftspeople. They were very low-key people, but he really got the best out of them. And, I think a lot of homes today, they lose the human touch. And I think that's part of, like, old school human touch, but then there's also, you can do the human touch in new architecture also. So,
Well, I mean, America is, unfortunately, bigger is better. And so, we rarely do you find like a perfect little present, which is why I came to you. I wanted to do a perfect little present, but like we still couldn't afford it. But we don't see that. Everything is, unfortunately, in, price per square foot, and we've got to have like 7
Atlanta
bedrooms.
Especially, but yeah. I mean, I think people are realizing, especially for the next generation, you can't clean it. You can't keep it up.
The taxes,
to run it, the lawn care, everything. And I think part of now is you can build that jewel box, but you have to realize you're going to have to spend money on quality, and that quality pays off long term. So you have less maintenance down the road. You know, the things that you invest in, good windows, good doors, all that stuff, they don't fall apart in 7, 8 years. So a lot of homes in Atlanta, unfortunately, they're big and grand, but then 5, 7 years down, they just need a lot of work.
And so I remember you talking about the German windows.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I, of course, don't know anything about that, but who, when you're sourcing for a project now, are you sourcing mostly from Europe, or are you?
Well, it depends on, I mean,
obviously not concrete and things like that, but
in the past, because it was a global market, and I traveled a lot for projects, we would run into vendors that wanted to open up to a different market, and America's the biggest market out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a matter of figuring out how to get that product here. Probably in the last 10 years, it's really been a lot more back and forth. I think COVID's kind of helped stop that, essentially, because of shipping costs has been crazy. But I still source things from Belgium, France, Italy, Estonia. We're doing oud glass boxes out of Estonia. And, I think part of it is they can do efficiency and craftsmanship hand in hand. And I think that's where America needs to go towards, be efficient, but also have that high quality like the Germans do.
Right.
And I think cheap isn't great because it's just wasteful. You've got to spend the money up front for it to really last. And I think that's the thing in Europe is that, they're dealing with century-old buildings, so the window has to be really efficient because they're not going to replace it, or they're going to pass that house to their kids. Real estate it doesn't change hands like it does in America.
Right. And so people here think, oh, I'll only live there 5 to 7 years. And typically they do. I mean,
And you said your forever house. Well, that's rare, and I think that's a privilege to be able to do that. And, when clients come to me to do that, to design something like that, I try to educate them on this is why you need to spend the money. This is why it doesn't happen instantly. You got to think things through, and the land, the architecture, the landscape, the interior designer, all that comes together. So that's why it's important to have a good team.
Yeah, and who do you really respect here in Atlanta, like as a landscape architect, and who do you? Like, who's your go-to team? If somebody were to come to you and say, Yong, build me your best house.
Oh, well, I mean, Rick Anderson, who I when I first started off my firm, I rented a place out of his office. And
Rick Anderson is who? I'm sorry.
Richard Anderson, landscape architect.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
And he worked under Ed Doherty, which was an old master Harvard-educated landscape architect, and Rick and I have probably done 50, 60 projects together. And, the great thing about working with great people is they fill the gaps in of the things you don't know, and knowing the plants, the orientation, how what's available, all that stuff, that's beyond my bandwidth right now. So like that's why you want experts on your side.
Right. So when you unveil the house, it comes together
works.
and it all works. And so I've seen several of your projects, and the houses are beautiful. But you mentioned to me that you sort of are getting more excited about contemporary houses now, but not necessarily like contemporary like we see in Atlanta. But what do you feel is like the next look that you would be interested in doing?
Well, that's a great segue because as I have gotten older and getting to my next phase of what I want to do, I'm developing, and I'm doing modern architecture because I don't have to rely on my clients so much as what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And I've always looked at the West Coast and Europe being ahead of the South as far as just contemporary architecture where there's not 5 different materials. You know, it's classic modern and, again, simple, high-quality materials. So instead of having a ton of moldings to hide gaps, you need a laser level to make it perfect. And also, you know, I always tell clients, I mean, I've designed 20,000 square foot homes, but I always tell clients, you're only going to live in 1,500 square feet.
Well, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's like I see, you know, the wine cellar, the, you know, the theater. And I'm just like, ew, no one wants to even hang in these rooms.
No.
Like, we all want to hang in this small room that feels cozy, that's near the kitchen, that's beautiful.
That's connected to the outside.
Yes.
And so, you know, I mean, I was fortunate to do a couple projects out west, in San Francisco area, in LA. And they are very fortunate. They don't have humidity. They don't have bugs. They don't need air conditioning, which is freaking unbelievable compared to Atlanta. But they have been at the forefront of indoor-outdoor entertaining. And I've got a line that says, we live in the back of house now. We don't have people in the back serving us anymore, which is so friggin' Southern.
Right.
And I always tell people, like, I'm from the South, but I'm from South Korea. You know, and so I think part of that is the new generation, those old boundaries are disappearing. It's still there because we still have some of that, but we can leap forward.
But do you like I mean, I sort of like a concealed kitchen to a point, because if you're entertaining, then all the mess is sort of away. You know, this big.
Well, that's your scullery kind of routine.
Yeah.
I'm a cook, so like, I don't care. I want to be in the action.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's like, I'll have a back kitchen just because nobody wants to see dirty dishes.
Right.
You know, but if I'm cooking for friends.
So the scullery is really where you keep all your appliances and all the junk.
Just all the junk. And, you know, it's like part of today with my daughters. I mean, hell, I've got 3 daughters, 26, 22, and 18. The most precious time you're ever going to have, and we're coming up to the season of Thanksgiving, is spending time cooking, talking, drinking, telling stories. And it's that simple thing, whether you're in a classic house or a modern house. And my creative outlet is cooking. So, you know, it's like, screw that. I'm not going to be in the back of the house. I'm going to hang out with people.
No, that's true. That's true. But I
You're a little bit more formal, Sarah.
I'm from Washington, you know,
true.
and
that's
you know,
true.
And so, and when we lived in Berlin,
Yeah.
you know, we had a server.
Of course.
Yeah, and it was really nice. And
From
then
East, of
when the diplomatic days were over,
yeah,
we would be
wow.
sitting at the dining room table, and my mother would say, "Mustafa," because that was his name. "Where are you?"
Right. You know, you go to Atlanta, some of the old homes, in the dining room, there would be a button that you can touch with your feet.
Love it.
And that's your servant's button.
I know, but the older I get, so I like a really small house, but lots of people that can help you, because,
course.
you know, it's,
You know.
but the days, but again, you know, people are more communal now. We aren't as
Definitely.
formal. And I think architecture seems to be leaning more that way, and everything is open concept, and people.
Well, I
really
think
like-
it shouldn't be totally open concept, in the sense that you should definitely have a room where all the things get together. But like, I like a good library. Like, I want to read a book. I don't want to see the kitchen. You know, I want to go to a room that, like, I feel comfortable and I can relax and read and do something else in. And I think the biggest trends that I've seen lately has been, besides the kitchen, you know, we just talked about this, your closet.
Right. You were saying that,
Yeah,
like, a
closets.
beautiful closet
Oh, yeah.
is really where it's at. And what do you know, I think is really cool, like in the House on Tuxedo that you did, I love now seeing the his and her bathroom. I do not want somebody looking at my butt when I'm like 75 years old. I want to come out and be like, ta-da! It's just so fabulous naturally. Like this whole like pedestrian, like I want to look at you in the shower in the morning. No, thank you.
I mean, that's great for maybe a year. You know, you want that passion, but in reality, I like my space, and it's like, I don't want, you still want to have some mystery out there.
Right.
And it's like, if you don't have that mystery, I don't know. It's just like.
But are all your clients asking for his and her bathrooms and his and her closets? And
Mostly, yeah. I mean, I'm getting older, and I think demographically it's changing. If you're younger, you tend to be clingier and want to hang out all the time. But, we're doing like huge closets where they can hang out together in a fabulous closet, or, a fabulous shower that has a tub in it, that's a steam shower that's, 8 by 12 and, rain heads. And
yeah, give it to me. Tell me what is the most
What?
like just opulent, amazing thing that people are like, just give it to me.
I think what I say back of house, like the luxury of coming home and your bedroom, not your bedroom so much because you're going to sleep in your bedroom, but your bathroom closet is going to be a better experience at any, resort you're going to go to,
Like, is that where you meditate? Is that people are asking for that, or what are they doing?
You got
in there?
meditation in the garden, but it's just like, you want to have a spa-like experience in your bathroom. Why not? And have the quality material. Right now, I love heated floors. There's nothing worse than you wake up and your marble floor is 50 degrees and your ass is
Right.
cold as shit.
But we don't live in Chicago, so
No, but it's still cold.
But so the opulent thing is just the tricked out closet. And
I think that because it's behind closed doors, it's not like everybody sees it.
oh,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
So it's like you get to invite a girlfriend in. Or, guys don't show their fucking bathrooms and closets to anybody, so it doesn't matter. But
Although
it's like,
I love I really like the way men's closets look almost
one
better than women's.
of my favorite closets I did. He was a top lawyer for a big firm here. And I looked at his closet, and all it was like gray flannel suits, maybe a couple navy, a couple black. So we did the whole closet in gray flannel.
Oh, beautiful.
And so that gray flannel wool has that kind of softness, but it's also sound deadening.
Oh.
And it was just amazing. And he just smiled. He would never tell you it's great, but he just loved it. And his wife had probably the nicest Art Deco jewelry collection I've ever seen. And we checked out her closet. And, it's just one of those things where, they can afford it, so why not?
And speaking of jewelry and thinking about all the crime and everything that's sort of happening in Atlanta, are
Yeah.
people super freaked out about that and building panic rooms and things like that, or is that not really a thing?
It, maybe in the past, if you want to deter crime in your house, the key thing is just maybe put a gate right at the street, so the cars can't get in.
Right.
Because God forbid they park on the street and walk to your house, So it's like if you can deter that, but it's all crime and safety's perception, and if they have certain needs, who am I going to say you can't have it? We're going to do our best to, a funny story. I did a house, a high rise where he was worried about his safety. And we did bulletproof glass.
In a high rise?
Oh, yeah. Because, God only knows a sniper can shoot you.
Was he like a drug dealer or something?
No, just, but it was an issue. And I think part of it is, as an architect, you have to learn what your client wants and what their needs are. It might not be what you want, but, you need to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And once we did it, it was a checklist. He was over it. We kept on moving forward. And I think part of doing a custom home is that your phobias or your wants or your wishes, you can exercise,
Right. Yeah, you can have all your dreams come true. I'm super excited to announce my sponsor, LA Stein by Lisa Stein. She is such a great jewelry designer. When I first saw her jewelry, I was just in awe, and I pretty much have her on my body every day. Can't live without LA Stein. So you can find her on Instagram and lastein.com. She is all about the layering, and it's collectible. So pretty much everybody I know has more than one piece. So if you're looking for a gift for somebody for the holidays, she has given us a discount code if you go to lastein.com, and it's Sarah, SARAH 15, and you will get 15% off. What is your favorite place? Like, where do you go to get inspired? I mean, is it in the shower and you just think about it, or do you go to a place and that you visit and you come back and you're like, oh, I feel renewed?
One of my favorite places, and I was very fortunate to make a big connection there about 20 years ago, is Cumberland Island.
I looked it up when you told me about that.
And the reason Cumberland Island is as long as Manhattan, and it's owned by the Carnegies. And there's a lot of beautiful places, but usually there's a lot of people. You know, you can go to the Caribbean, you can go to Cabo, like you go to. And there are very few places where you can walk all day on the beach and not see anybody. And just having that kind of connection to nature, that tranquility. I think as older I get, I'm less into architecture and more into gardens. Dumbarton Oaks is a fabulous place.
We used to sneak into Dumbarton Oaks and swim at night after we went clubbing.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
it's one of the
beautiful.
It's one of the best gardens.
Yeah.
And she was the first female architect in America. And gardens just have a way to renew because it's beyond you. You never know what nature is going to give you. And if you nurture it, it's just, it's a surprise. And, I've got strategic tea olives in my courtyard. And 3 times a year, it's just unbelievable fragrance come off those trees. And, it's just those simple things that you can't create on a phone. You can't create on a computer.
Well, it's all those refined subtleties that somebody like a landscape architect could make your architecture come alive.
I feel bad for them because usually we screw up their budgets first, and they never have enough.
Right.
And their projects are never immediate. We're like instant gratification. I always tell clients, you're going to have an affair with an architect. You're going to have a relationship with an interior designer. And you're going to probably have a divorce lawyer with your landscape architect because it's going to take so long.
Oh, just for the plants to grow and come
It takes
about.
5 years for it to really mature in.
And I think that's a good point because, like you said, the few times that I've done houses, I've spent my budget on getting the house done, and then it just looks horrible on the outside. But you really should almost do it in reverse based on how
hard. It's hard to do it all.
It is,
and I think part of it is how does a house evolve? Over a 5-year period, you're going to evolve. Your tastes are going to change. And, in Europe and other places, the architecture is pretty set. In America, we renew it. We either bulldoze it, renovate it, we do something with it. Over there, it's more static, and they can change little things. Here we can reinvent pretty quickly.
Well, I mean, in Atlanta in particular, driving up to Sandy Springs, which I think was sort of developed more in the 70s.
Yeah.
It's hard. There's a lot of teardowns in Sandy Springs, a lot of bad architecture, a lot of bad roof lines. And, Atlanta, you can kind of conceal a very average house because it is so green and beautiful here.
Well, that's how I got here.
Yeah.
I was headed to New York. I graduated University of Florida, got in my Scirocco, headed to New York. I had a friend here. And growing up at Miami, everything's on a grid. There were trees, but the best neighborhoods always have trees. Then you hit Atlanta, and it's like the whole city is trees.
Right.
And they're not small trees. They're, a big mature canopy. And, it was really different here. And people were nice here. It was less of a rat race, I think. And, you combine the civility of the Southern way, which, I try to keep up with that, but, I'm not great at that. And and then the trees, like you said, hide a plethora of bad design.
And what do you think about, I know you told me to paint my house white, but I'm beginning to think I'm so happy I didn't, because there are all these white boxes everywhere that we're going to look back in 20 years and
trend.
say it's a trend.
It's a trend.
And it's too much.
Yeah, people react viscerally quickly to a phone, and they see a picture and they want things fast. And when you, like in Atlanta, there were, like, I grew up in Miami, there were no brick houses in Miami. It was mostly stucco. So when I came up here and I worked for Norman, there's a $95 brick. There's a custom brick that you get from Belden or North Carolina that's $800.
A brick?
No, per square.
Oh, okay.
Per square. So It's like you can get it really cheap or you can go super custom. And then all of a sudden what happens is you've got a ton of choices. What's the color of the brick? What texture do you want? You know what I'm saying? So I think part of it now is just that red brick. I've never liked it.
I don't like it either.
Yeah.
But a little creeping fig and a
Boston
good
ivy.
Yeah, Boston ivy and good landscape architecture will, I think, fix it. But I just feel like every builder is throwing up a white house with black trim now.
Well, it's because that's a spec market. You know that. That's what people kind of want quickly.
It is what we want, but I just don't see. I see it kind of going in a bad direction.
I think it's all cyclical too. It comes, it's going to hit a high and hit lows.
Well, maybe they'll end up gray in 20 years or something like that. So, I guess that how I want to finish things with you is, we talked about this a little bit before we met before, but I'm so curious about how people end up where they are. And, what influences a person to be what they end up being, or how they end up being successful in somebody like you, like a talent. So maybe you didn't know you wanted to be an architect, but did you think that it could be landscape architecture, or it could be something beauty oriented after you got over the thing with your parents, wanting you?
Like, I was with a 1.7 GPA trying to get to med school. I was realistic. There is no way in hell I'm going to get to med school. I was not one of these Asian kids that were bright as hell.
But were you already doodling or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I took art classes.
Okay.
So I used to help my friend do his architecture projects. And I thought, hell, it's fun. And, and then I had a realization at Florida, you have to apply to your college. And it's a weed out program like your sophomore year. You have to apply to your college. And it was like, there's no way I'm getting in the medical track. So I had to really come up with okay, what am I going to do? And I just kind of took a chance, and I lost 2 years, but, I hate, I wasn't into chemistry, wasn't into calculus, but then I started taking design classes and start drawing. You focus, and when you go to,
you in.
Well, yeah. And it's like people, you're supposed to know everything before you hit college. Screw that. How the hell do you know what you're going to do the rest of your life?
Well, it's project of elimination, sort of
And so I was good at design. I liked drawing. I saw a path, and, I got to drink coffee, hang out late at night. My lifestyle didn't change that much, And so, I would go into studios at 1 in the morning and leave at 5, 6 in the night.
And did you meet an architect that you're like, he's cool?
No, because you're in college. You're like, you look at books, and Rem Koolhaas was a big architecture god then. And, yeah, but it was fun designing. And then the big moment for me was when I went to Europe. Student loans paid for a European trip.
For real, for real?
For real. And got to study Palladio and Carlo Scarpa, which is my favorite architect. So I got to eat great Italian food. I got my worst grade in Italy because I never went to class. I was on a train to Vienna, to Paris, whatever. I'd leave Thursday and come back Tuesday, and the professor's, pissed, but I didn't care. That was probably the best money that, I got to pay student loan on. But, like you grew up in Europe, you know what it's like.
Well, I think traveling is essential, and it's sort of underrated in the United States. I mean, it's people typically are going down to 30A every summer and kind of repeating and doing the same thing. And it's expensive down there, by the way. You could go to Paris for the same money.
Totally.
It's ridiculous.
America's not set up for kids on a Eurail pass going to a youth hostel. Now they're not doing youth hostels, they're doing Airbnb. But like, there's a whole economy on riding a train, going to a city, getting connected. And, it's like my summer program, that was it. It's like, screw that. I'm going to take full advantage of it. And that kind of opened up my eyes to a European kind of classical architecture. And that's what I brought to Norman. And that's what I wanted to explore. And, it's I'm getting to be an old fart now. I don't want to reminisce, but now I get to do a development where it's like, I love modern architecture. I'm getting to do the kind of modern architecture I want to do. My development now.
Mm-hmm. And tell us the name of your development.
AMA.
AMA. And how do you spell that?
AHMA.
Okay, and this is going to be a place for people in Atlanta to go, a retreat.
Atlanta, all throughout Southeast. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that, like, in our backyard, we don't realize we have over a couple million acres of forest close to us. We have some of the prettiest waters. We're off the Blue Ridge Parkway. We're, Pisgah National Forest is 1 million acres that the Vanderbilts donated. When you see the West burning and becoming a desert, all of a sudden you go 3 hours north of here, beautiful deciduous forest. We're in what's called a deciduous rainforest. So we get 4 feet of rain. You get hardwoods. So right now we just missed the leaves turning red. But it's in our backyard, and we're so rushed. And I like the beach, but it's like, give me the mountains all day long. So the reason I got attracted to this piece of property, I've done a lot of homes in Highlands, Cashers. Everybody talks about the mountain view, which is great. But if you had a couple drinks and you have to climb these roads, forget it. You're going to get in a crash. But we found a beautiful piece of property with a 5-star trout rated river. And so we're going to, having the water in the mountains.
And you said there's going to be like a spa. And...
Yeah, we're doing a resort spa.
So...
And then we're also going to do, the pandemic actually helped out because we, through my friend Stan, we found a glass pod called Ouds out of Estonia. And they're 3-sided mirror boxes that are our hotel rooms. And so we want to bring modern architecture to the mountains. And, it's like, you think of Highlands Casher, it's like, if I have to see a twig or
twig railing again.
Twig railing and antiques, and, I'm going to kill myself.
Right.
Well, screw that. I want my kids to enjoy it. I want to enjoy it. And why not go to a place like I'm going to go this Sunday? I don't have to get on a plane. I got a little convertible. I enjoy driving up there. And it's accessible. And it's in our backyard. And we don't know how to take advantage of it.
And when will this be ready?
We're raising right now, I think within a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, within a year and a half.
It's exciting. And I think that, with travel being so hideous unless you have your own plane, and then that's not eco, and it's just takes so much time and there's so many variables. I think people are looking for cool things to do to get out of town. I guess I wanted to finish with you. If somebody's listening and maybe they're thinking they want to be you someday, and they're a kid growing up anywhere in the United States or anywhere in the world, who knows what our listening base will be, what would you tell that person that obviously it took a while for you to get to where you are today, but what were the things that sort of leapfrogged you ahead, and what would you say? I mean, other than going to school for architecture, obviously traveling, but are there any books or anything that you recommend for somebody who's interested in your field?
I'll tell you a great book, Thinking on the Right Side of Your Brain, because I draw and you use your right hemisphere versus if you're analytical on your left. I chose not to get on a computer because I can hire that. So I still hand draw. I think the art of putting something on a piece of paper is important. That's our evolution, and being on a computer or a phone screen, that's not real expertise. And so I think there's certain things that it's not bad being old school, and learning how to draw, learning how to have passion in the little doodle sketches. And that sketch could be a great idea. But like, as soon as you're on a computer or you're on a phone, you're committed to one thing. It's very directional. When you're drawing and stuff, your mind gets to wander and explore things. So I would recommend that you explore the doodles, have fun with it. And if it's fun, then guess what? You're going to work hard. It's not going to feel like it's working. And, I'm blessed that people pay me to do
something you love.
Something I love. Yeah.
Well, you're so talented, and I like you so much. I feel so honored that you were my first guest.
I feel honored that you picked me. That was very gracious of you.
No, and you really are so talented, and we will make sure that we put on the screen about the resort that you're starting, because I think it's really cool. I'll definitely be a guest, and thank you so much for doing this.
And this is a great format, and I wish you the best.
Oh, thank you.